It's been the off season for a few weeks now. Sprint Ride Option Podcast is back. We're going to preview it just a little bit, have some fun while we do it. It's a new Sprint Ride Option Podcast. Come hang out for the next 45 minutes or so.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option Podcast. It's a new Sprint Ride Option Podcast. A lot of things have changed since the last time I said that sentence. Things like Rihanna being pregnant and Jerick McKinnon being a Super Bowl champion. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. And Jason, it's been a few weeks since we've done this. I really need to know your raw emotion and raw thoughts of seeing Rihanna at the halftime Super Bowl show into the shock and fear of her being pregnant. Jason, I need to know your thoughts.
Well, I think I kind of, we're in a society now where if a woman is showing something in her belly, you don't necessarily jump to saying, oh, she's pregnant. But that was the first thought that was in my mind when I saw it. And I won a prop bet, actually, for what color dress she was going to wear. I bet red, and I won. But yeah, she has a thing for uptown New York guys, just not guys from the Bronx. It's only Harlem, apparently, at this point. So, yeah, I mean, that was amazing. She did a great job. And Peyton's asking, is this thumbnail insinuating a Richie James return? I'm going to let you in a little secret. Kyle Brakewitz, who does all of our thumbnails, is at the forefront of the Richie James hive. And in the same way that, we kind of champion Jerick McKinnon, which, we haven't spoken, Andrew, since, I got back from the Super Bowl, where I was able to finally complete the Sprint Right Option Podcast question. Yeah, man, the honestly, that's it. It's all downhill from here after that.
Can I get your thoughts actually on that? Because that's a whole big thing I think we need to touch on. Jason Aponte in Arizona, credentialed Super Bowl media night. Before we dive in, because honestly, man, the Niners stuff, not a ton going on right now. Let's be 1,000% honest. We're in that in between of the offseason, not sure what's going on. I want to hear Jason Aponte's Super Bowl experience, because that to me, I know I tweeted it, but I want to reiterate it here on the podcast. I think one of the coolest things for me personally of doing this podcast with you is seeing you grow and seeing you. I mean, remember 2 years ago when, and I'm not to slander it, this isn't going to come off as slander, I hope not. Remember 2 years ago when it was a big deal that we were talking to, hey, Jason Aponte, Senior Bowl. He's going to the Senior Bowl. And in 2 short years, it's gone from the Senior Bowl, once again, not saying anything bad about the Senior Bowl, to the Combine, to Jason Aponte at the Super Bowl. And it really feels like, I mean, he's an Instagram influencer now. Is this Jason Aponte's world and we're just living in it? But no, I want to know, Super Bowl thoughts, what it was like being there, all that stuff. I want it all right now.
And as usual, Andrew Pasquini over-embellishing about that, because I created a reel and I put on Instagram. So that's what he's talking about when it comes to that. But no, just, adding to the resume and being able to rub shoulders with people that I'm big fans of, people that I've watched on TV, as a child, being able to run and say hi to Trey Wingo, Kenny Mayne, guys that I watched on SportsCenter, not only and then being able to speak to the Chiefs and the Eagles and running into, former players and guys like Jay Glazer, meeting Michael Vick. I mean, that was probably the top of the top, man. Honestly, I really tried to be professional, but I couldn't hold it in just because he's somebody who I've loved, since he came into the league. But the Jerick McKinnon thing is for me and you, buddy. And that was me letting the world know that the joke has come full circle and we got a whole response of it. And you know what? Jerick was Jet. Because he's not Jerick anymore. He's Jet size.
Yeah.
Was super nice with his time, was very humble, and he remembered the play vividly. And if you guys haven't seen it, I posted the video on YouTube and everything. But that was for Andrew Pasquini and I to kind of come full circle with the Jet McKinnon from the Wildcat joke.
Well, look at Jet McKinnon looking out for the podcast, too. Has a chance to change history, make the biggest play of his career, a game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. He goes down at the one. Now the biggest play of his career is still McKinnon from the Wildcats. So that looking out for the podcast, looking out for the brand, he gets a ring out of it. We love it. No, I was so excited for him. I saw him have that lane, and I'm like, oh, he's going to have the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. How amazing that! And then he falls, and it turns into oh, wow, that's actually a really smart play. I wouldn't have
It
made
really
that
was.
play. I would not have made that play.
It really
But
was.
that's why I'm here and not getting paid millions of dollars to play football. So, hey,
I was
there you go.
this close to having a tweet become something that was fortuitous. I said I'm totally here for the Jerick McKinnon touchdown, which puts them over the top. Literally, I see him running for the end zone, and I'm like, oh my god, I get to pat myself on the back. But he did the right thing, and he spoke so glowingly of Andy Reid and how Andy Reid utilized him, man. So shout out to Jet, man. But it was really cool to ask him about what happened on that play. He talked about it. He just said, listen, I didn't want to put Ayuk in a bad spot. I pulled it in and took the hit. So big moment for the pod, man. Big moment for the little guys being able to ask questions to our guy, which it's gone from a joke now he's a Super Bowl champion. So shout out to Jerick McKinnon. I was super excited to see him become a champion.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we opened up with the Jerick McKinnon Super Bowl champion conversation because that's something that shouldn't be lost. Former Niner legend, and somebody that maybe not now he knows because Jason asked him about it, but before a couple weeks ago, did not know the importance of one play on this podcast.
I will say, I made a huge mistake not bringing my McKinnon jersey and having him at one point to just be able to sign it or whatever. Unfortunately, but I'm trying to act as media. I'm trying to act like I've been there. That's not what you do. So yeah, it was. I spoke to him a few times on and off. Just a really nice guy, man. Very happy to be there. And it's so funny how the perception around him because of the way he left San Francisco and what happened, during his time there, it's kind of left the bad tapes in the 49ers fans' mouths. I'm here to tell you, things get said out of emotion. He's a good guy, and I'm happy for him, man.
All right. So that's I guess that's that. You have any final thoughts on your Super Bowl experience before we move on, or you got any last things?
I think the coolest thing was being able to ask Jay Glazer about his time on one of my favorite shows, The League. And when he talked about how that show is unscripted, very much like Curb Your Enthusiasm. But I do think that there was a layer to his answer that I think is what makes Jay Glazer so cool. Is he spoke about, I worked on Ballers and they gave us a script and it would take us hours to film one scene over. He goes over and over. I was in remedial English and I have ADD. And he spoke he was very forthcoming about that. And he said the league was right up my alley to just be able to say, they give you a soft script, they put you in a spot and just go. Jay Glazer, one of the coolest dudes, man. Got a chance to talk with him. He was really nice, man. Lane Johnson really gave some really good answers. The peak quote that I think you guys have seen. Melvin Gordon was asked by a British announcer about what he does to prepare for game day. And he literally said, me, I don't do shit because I don't play. I get carried. And I was standing right behind him when he said it. And if you watch the video, because I think the Dove Cleveland and a bunch of people, it's made the rounds, the video.
Yeah.
You can hear me laughing in the background. And I was able to, get a chance to speak with him after. I asked him a little bit about the Russell Wilson in Denver stuff. Like, was it overblown? Does he have his own parking space? And he said, listen, he doesn't have his own parking space. No one treated him better than anybody else. He has his own office, but when he's in the office, shout out to Rich Madrid, he's not going to like this answer. All he did was watch the tape, and nobody works harder at watching the tape than Russell Wilson. So get cooked, Rich.
Yeah, Jay Glazer seems like an all-time guy, just an all-time guy's dude. I don't know how else to say that. So I'm pretty happy you got to meet him. And I really like it when professional athletes are brutally honest. And Melvin Gordon, it feels like that's been his bit for the past 3 weeks now of like, yeah, man, I got this Super Bowl ring. I got it. I did it. I didn't do anything, but I got it. And that's all that matters in my heart. It was a very big, like, people the days after were like, Melvin Gordon's on the Chiefs now? Like, when did that happen? But hey, Melvin Gordon's out there celebrating, his Super Bowl championship. A thing a lot of people don't have. So I would be flexing it as well.
And to bring it to the 49ers stuff, Mike Silver is on the floor on opening night. And I'm blocked by Mike Silver because I strongly refuted the Trey Lance arm fatigue notion. Kind of feels bad now, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Now that the Quincy Avery podcast comes out, so I almost asked him like, "Hey, can we talk? Like, can you unblock me?" So Mike Silver, if you're watching this, my bad. You just left out the context. You said it
Yeah,
right, but
there we
like
go.
you left out the context. You just didn't frame it in a way where it was like, oh, he threw for 20 straight months. You just made it doom and gloom, doomsday. It's the worst thing ever. And but still, ooh, I gotta take the L on that one too, huh?
Hey, spur it up to podcast. We're not afraid to admit the L's here. Throwing for 20 months straight just feels like not fun. Like I played baseball, and I'm obviously not comparing my high school baseball experience to an NFL player. So please don't do that, guys. But I felt like throwing 3 months in a row was a lot. 20 months in a row is a lot, and it would make sense. His arm is a bit fatigued, and I know that one created a lot of kerfluffle. I'm going to use that word. I don't think that's a word, but some kerfluffles on 49ers Twitter. Let's do some house cleaning, though, because we got a lot of little things that have happened in the last 3 weeks. We're going to be a little bit all over the place with this episode.
Fire away. This is peak off season where we're just trying to, get through it, like stick with us, guys. When the content's there with actual football, it's so much easier to create, I promise, without forcing content.
Yeah, and even too, I mean, this is really the dead area. Things aren't really going to pick up until March. And actually, before we dive into the Niners content, I do want to remind people, and it feels like it shouldn't be a running bit anymore because we've done it so much. We might not be recording much over the next few weeks until free agency starts. Where you can, if you want Jason Aponte and Andrew Pasquini thoughts, NinersNation.com. We're still writing there weekly. Jason, I believe, is writing a current Niners free agent article. He's going through all the Niners free agents. Why not?
I just put up McGlinchey today.
Just put up McGlinchey. You had Brendel on Saturday. The reason I remember that is I am currently working on my own little series with ways the Niners can address these needs. And I actually did the center. The first one was mine. We have a little bit of a disagreement. You went Zackel if Brendel leaves. I said bring back Brunskill if Brendel leaves. And I know that one's a little bit different as well because you got to bring back Brunskill. But things like that, we will be continuing to produce content on NinersNation.com, even if the podcast isn't as regular. So be sure to go check that out because Jason and I are still putting in the work, even though the podcast isn't as frequent as it's been in the regular season. But you'll see why, Jason. You'll see why we haven't recorded much the past couple of weeks because not much has happened, at least in an official standpoint. Let's cover the official things first. The coaching changes. I have a list. I feel like I'm missing some. A lot of moves to the Texans, Jason Aponte. Don't know if you know this one. The big one, obviously, DeMeco Ryans. He leaves the Niners defensive coordinator spot. He is going to be the Houston Texans head coach. With that move, he brought in Bobby Slowick as his offensive coordinator, Nick Cray as his chief of staff, and then Corey Unlin, who was the Niners defensive pass game coordinator and secondary coach. He was brought in to become the Houston defensive passing game coordinator. He wasn't a direct bring over because the Niners let his contract expire. The Niners, there are two moves I have so far on the coaching standpoint, at least the two big ones. Defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, he's going to step in. He comes from Carolina as the interim head coach and the DC there. And then they hired passing game coordinator Clint Kubiak, who is Gary Kubiak's son. And I believe Clay is his brother, who's the 49ers assistant quarterback coach. So there are the coaching moves from the 49ers, Jason. And I think the big one is the defensive coordinator spot. First, your thoughts on Ryan's going, which I don't think it surprised anybody really. And then the hiring of Steve Wilks. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Well, congratulations to Coach. And bring your bucket and your mop because it's a mess in Houston. I mean, Godspeed, buddy. We're all rooting for you and everything, and I think you're the right man for the job. If there's somebody who will change cultures, will right the ship, it will be him. So congratulations on that. Shout out to Bobby Slowick, who says PFF guys can't get jobs. Take that. So that's another shot at Rich Madrid. Get worked. I mean, this is Rich Madrid's catching strays because PFF guys are getting actual offensive coordinator gigs and stuff, and Russ is actually watching the tape. It's a tough time right now for Rich. It's just a tough time for him.
Very tough time.
And with the 49ers, I think we're going to see growth in the defensive back field. Every linebacker under DeMeco Ryans took steps. Every one of them. Aziz, Fred, and Dre Greenlaw. I think the idea was, one, the continuity that Kyle Shanahan spoke about at the end of the season, and two is what happens with Emmanuel Mosley? Does he come back? If he doesn't come back, then you have to rely on Diamadou Lenoir. Well, who is more inclined to get the most out of Diamador Lenore, it's going to be somebody who's a secondary guy. You want to improve on the things that Talanoa Hufanga, who did great down the stretch, didn't really give up any plays. What happens with Gibson? Jimmy Ward's probably going to leave. Feels like the 49ers are going to shore up the defensive line one way or another, whether that's free agency, which I hope. I've got a wish list of like splash guys that I really would like them to go for. But I think the whole idea was there's a whole position group that's about to take a leap, and I think it's going to happen under Steve Wilkes since he's a secondary guy. So love the move. Great culture guy. The guys in Carolina loved him. Jordan wrote about it. He spoke with Brian Burns, and he spoke about the schematic things that'll happen. 49er fans, for as much as you've been, I guess, preoccupied or focused on 3-4, 4-3, right? Because Vic Fangio didn't come around. You're going to be shocked when you see a bunch of 3-3-5 out of Steve Wilkes. So again, I think the whole base defense thing is super overblown. You're never going to be in base. You're going to be in base one down. Everything else is largely nickel, and everything's going to be personnel and opponent base. I think Steve Wilkes is a fine hire. Sticks around for 2 more years. 49ers get more picks. Keep Anthony Lynn. I think that's really good. A lot of continuity. And the Clint Kubiak thing, if coach likes it, then it's great. Like, it's going to be fine. I don't really think that you can get mad at any of the coaching choices that they've made, because who's been bad for them outside of Rick Scangarello? Sorry, last time I had to
that's even really only bad one. And that went so bad, he got fired at Kentucky after 1 year.
Got fired again, man. And you thought it was me. And you thought it was me. You thought it was me.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I know I saw a lot of people I'm not going to say overreact, talk about the loss of Bobby Slowick. And I've gotten to the point where I'm just numb to it. I was told after 2020 that losing Robert Saleh was going to kill this defense. I was told that losing Mike McGlinchey might kill this off. And no, I'm joking. Losing Mike McDaniel is going to hurt Kyle Shanahan. Was McDaniel really the genius behind it? I'm at a point where I do not care who the Niners lose at this point, because as long as Kyle Shanahan's there, they're going to be fine at at any coaching spot, really.
When it comes to the offense, Kyle's a star. And if he's bringing you in, it's because he knows what you can do to help him, and you're a cog in the machine. And that's the thing more than anything. By the way, nice little book came in about Mike McDaniel as well too. Ooh, excited to get and excited to dig into that a little bit more. So, but
those Bobby Peter books. I know you love those Bobby Peter books.
Oh, I do, man. I love it, man. I'm gonna get to sit here, watch film, look at it's so good to correlate all that stuff. But when it comes to like, people are like, oh, why this guy? Because Kubiak wasn't exactly, successful in his last trip with the Vikings. But as a pass game coordinator, you just have to do what Kyle needs you to do. And I think that's the part that I'm not worried about anymore. I think Andrew nails it, man. It's just like, people are like, oh my God, we lost this coach. Oh my God, we lost the boombox guy. It's like, guys,
hang on. Don't slander the boombox guy. That's a big loss.
It's the biggest. Like, who cares? Who cares? Come on. It's just, again, we go through this every offseason. Guys didn't even know what Bobby Slowick did. They didn't even know that he used to work at PFF. They don't even know what the pass game coordinator function is, like, part of that. So, and again, Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator, right? Who knows how deep that was with that. Now there's no offensive coordinator, right? Like, I think Anthony Lynn might be somebody who they think about, but again, man, if Kyle likes it, I love it, man. They've just churning out coach after coach. It's just so easy to set your watch to.
Yeah. No, yeah, perfectly said, Jason. I'm not too concerned about the names lost. I'm excited to see what Steve Wilkes can do. He's been a respected name in the NFL for several years now. I'm already mentally preparing myself for the conversation in 2 years about losing Steve Wilkes as a head coach somewhere, because that feels almost inevitable at this point with Steve Wilkes. He's had a couple chances.
More third rounders.
Hey, third round. We love those third rounders. Jason, the last bit of cleanup before we dive into like free agency and a little bit of draft, not too much draft, kind of where it stands right now. Really, the first, I'm going to call it a hump the Niners offseason has to get over is to find out what's going on at the quarterback position. Currently waiting on the Brock Purdy news. Surgery. 2 days. He's meeting, according to what I have, he's meeting with Dr. Keith Meister, surgeon for the Texans Rangers in Dallas tomorrow. I believe the surgery is scheduled for Wednesday. And this is where it gets a little sussy. I'm going to say that word. Don't know why that's the word I chose.
You're crushing it
The
today with the vocab.
Yeah, we're just stretching. We haven't done a podcast in 3 weeks. I forgot words now. We're just figuring it out as we go on the fly. Most optimistic timeline is 3 months and ready for camp. That feels like it would be a-okay with Niner fans, especially considering the things certain Niner players have said. It really feels like this is Brock Purdy's job as of this second. However, an internal brace surgery is planned, but Dr. Meister has clearance to opt for a hybrid, which would include reconstruction, which is more or less Tommy John surgery for the baseball fans out there. And that could have a 9 to 12 month timeline, which obviously changes plans for the 49ers in 2023, because a 9 to 12 month timeline takes you to what? I mean, anywhere from December or November to January. So somewhere in that area, which doesn't feel great. So this feels like the first big thing we have to figure out, because if it's a 9 to 12 months, it's either we find out it's Trey Lance's job, or we find out how comfortable Kyle Shanahan feels with Trey Lance. We'll find that out. And then obviously if it's 3 months, the Niners have their starting quarterback in 2023.
The thing is, these scenarios are perfect world scenarios, right? This 6 month timeline, which is 3 months of Brock building his arm strength back up, and then 3 months of him getting back and throwing a football, which puts him on track for the third preseason game. But, you know, once the surgery is successful, once there's no more setbacks, which Trey Lance also spoke about that second surgery being a bit of a setback, and he had to walk back the whole "I'm fully clear" thing that he said on Rich Eisen, which is another thing. So, look, best case scenario is always what you hope for. What you do is you prepare for the worst. So the 49ers, regardless, however this is going to work, is going to bring in a veteran. So is it going to be Andy Dalton? Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett? Is it going to be Teddy Bridgewater? Is it going to be Jameis?
I knew you were going to say it. We're speaking that into existence.
So the 49ers right now are in a position where, here's the only thing that I can say is the positive to this, because you obviously don't want to spin an injury as a positive. Is Trey Lance, as long as everything goes along and he gets cleared in time, is going to have a great look at developing himself, getting the reps, building rapport. He's going to have his shot, right? I don't think if Trey Lance goes out there in OTAs, training camp, preseason, and lights the world on fire and looks like the guy that they thought they were getting, that you can really just turn this thing back over to Brock Purdy, because one, the team will be convinced, and two, Kyle will be convinced. It's an interesting scenario that's being played out here. The only frustration that I know 49ers fans have is it's another offseason in which we're asking about the quarterback position. And it's just, we don't have it locked in. Like, we don't look, we go into the offseason and we're like, it's this guy or it's this guy. There's so many things at play, and this is going to be an interesting offseason. It's kind of why I took a little bit of time off, because I know the storm that's coming, especially if we get word, hopefully in 2 days, that Brock Purdy is successfully, surgery went successful. Everything's going to be fine. He's going to be moving on. Like, I am bracing myself for what's next.
Yes.
And it's going to be large debates, strong opinions, things that people are going to have to stand on, rather than just trying to gather information and be fluid. So at this point, Super Bowl Media Week was kind of eye-opening, because you listen to 49ers players say things about, this is, George Kittle, this is Brock's team. I don't see how, I mean, when you think about what Brock did, it's hard to not agree with them. But at the same time, Trey Lance is in front of microphones and kind of reaffirming the fact that a lot of us were comfortable with him as quarterback because of how smart and confident he is, and how much he loves his teammates, all those things. So it's interesting. Like, my tinfoil hat theory is, Trey's just out there and they're letting him talk because they're kind of preparing him for, just in case, you might be the guy again, man. You might be the guy again. So again, we hope for the best. You got to prepare for the worst. So I think the 49ers are going to do that one way or another. Again, stopgap guy, a guy who can start here and there. You don't want him starting many games. You don't want Andy Dalton starting many games. You don't want Brissett starting many games. But in a pinch, 1 game, fine. 2 games, cool. You're cool with that. But either way, Trey Lance is going to get a look at it. And I do want to say one more time, I hate the scenario that Trey Lance has been thrown into.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it was a huge miscalculation from this front office and this organization in terms of what they thought they could do in terms of his development, while balancing out a win now team. So interesting time now.
Yeah. And just as the whole of the quarterback position, the most interesting wrench that could have been thrown into all this, retired before the Super Bowl. because that was maybe the big name I was thinking the Niners could realistically go after at quarterback to kind of push back the conversation of Purdy and Lance once again, and that obviously being Tom Brady. I know people see Aaron Rodgers out there. I don't think that's a very realistic opportunity right now.
No.
So
He's
really with if not the Jet, a Raider, if not a Raider, a Packer, if not a Packer.
He's a Jet, Jimmy's a Raider, Carr's a Saint.
Okay, I like that. Where does that leave with the Commanders? I want to solve all the quarterback positions now.
It means left hand up.
Luhu. Okay, we like that. The Colts, Justin Fields. I saw an edit today. But
no,
they're not trading Justin Fields. Let's get that out of the way real fast. But yeah, in terms of that, it's really, to me, it's either Purdy or it's Lance. I think that's obvious at this point. They're going to sign a veteran name that isn't going to be involved with, I guess in theory, if they sign a veteran name like an Andrew Dalton, like the names you listed, maybe there'll be some thoughts of, man, that might be the worst case.
No.
Yeah, that's what
You cannot push either guy out one more year with their development.
That's what I'm saying. That's going to be the weird thing. So maybe, even too, the Andrew Dalton tier might feel. God, this is going to be such a weird offseason. You're seeing me process it live here, because yeah, man, if Purdy can't go, you have to sign somebody as a backup quarterback to Trey Lance that doesn't feel like he could threaten the spot. You know what I mean? And
it's got to be a vet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting quarterback scenario. I'm not going to throw too much speculation out there until we find out. Lamar Jackson, that's the real one that we don't want to say yet. We'll find out what happens with him. But yeah, I don't want to throw out too much speculation until we find out what happens with Brock Purdy. Until then, that's just kind of the situation. It's going to be Purdy or it's going to be Lance, unless a really weird wrench in Lamar Jackson gets thrown in there. But even then, I don't know how realistic that is. But hey, we'll see. Anything can happen in the NFL. They like to brand that, right?
Well, I think that what you do is you run it with, the two young men, as long as they're healthy. You have your vet, right? And if things go haywire and guys get injured again, Tom Brady's one call away. That's why Tom Brady's not taking the Fox Sports job. Tom Brady's just going to stay home.
Taking a year? Yeah. Weird.
Stop it.
It's weird. It's almost as if
I'm familiar with your game, pal.
It's almost like these veterans who've been around a long time will do anything to avoid training camp and all that fun stuff.
Like Gronk. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm back, man. I'm back.
Yeah.
By the way, seeing Rob Gronkowski in person, I don't understand how anybody ever tried to guard that man.
No. He's big. I've never seen him in person. I can only imagine how big he actually is.
6'7", and he's just like this. And I'm just like, dude, who could cover him? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, man, if you get Brady, maybe you get Gronk. Sam Darnold, he's another name. I feel like he'd be in the category of maybe. Yeah, Darnold would be an interesting one because
Darnold would be the Geno Smith candidate.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden, Darnold starts kicking up, and you're just like, well, maybe we got something here. So yeah,
we'll see. So that's the quarterback position. We got two things we're going to deal with here, or not two things we're going to deal with. Two final things. Real quick, I saw somebody ask, Niners have 10 draft picks as of this second. I'll list them really. This might be the list portion of the podcast, so I apologize, Jason Aponte. The Niners currently have the 99th pick, the 101st pick, the 102nd pick, the 157th pick, the 166th, the 173rd, the 216th, 224, 249, and 255. Only two of those picks are the 49ers' original picks. 3 of them are comps from coaches. 2 of them are trades, and 3 of them are comps from players signing DJ Jones, Arden Key, and K'Wan Williams. So that's where the Niners stand currently in the draft. That's really all I want to touch on right now, Jason. It's February 20th. I got a list of names, but not much information on any of them. I could tell you this, Caillou Blue Kelly, early candidate for best name available right now, but we'll see. We're going to dive in a little deeper. So nothing too deep, Jason. Just thoughts on draft Niners, what they may or may not do. Nothing too deep yet, because we got a whole 2 months to really dive into deep names.
And combines next week, so yeah.
There's the draft thoughts, Jason Aponte, right there. Combine next week. We love it.
Combines next week. I'll start to dig into that. I saw you guys asking about draft crushes and all that. Like, I literally, after I got back from the Super Bowl, and once the 49ers were eliminated, I completely like unplugged.
Mhm.
Like I've been spending
Yeah.
time with
Oh, yeah.
Averly.
Oh, yeah.
I've been trying to do other things. Like, I'll get to it. I know the grind doesn't stop. Well, the grind stopped, man. I've been chilling. Like I'm bouncing around with Averly, threw my
Yeah.
back out at a bounce house place or
That
whatever.
looked fun.
Hey, got to get some of that time in because during the season I'm just like I'm never around and I
Mhm.
got to do a little bit more. So, but yeah, next week combine, I'll be there. We'll get back to it. I needed a little bit of time to decompress from what's in front and from what just happened in its entire year. Like we didn't play a game this year, but I was worn out after the season was over.
No. The first few weeks of off season are just very much like I forget football exists. Like that's really the best thing
XFL is
about
pretty good though.
Hey man, my Sea Dragons tough loss. Ben DeNu, dude. I don't know. I'm sure you saw this. I got retweeted by PFT commenter, and I had a goddamn typo on it. What a bozo. I called him Den DeNucci. I'm slandering an Italian. It's real bad. Jason, this is my final list of the podcast. I apologize for it. We're going to dive into some free agency talk really quick, mainly on the 49ers side of things. The 49ers on the list, I have 24 free agents right now. I'm not going to list them all. Some names that are familiar: Jimmy Ward, Jimmy Garoppolo, Samson Ebukam, Mike McGlinchey, Emmanuel Mosley, Aziz Al-Shaair, Jason's favorite player, Robbie Gould, Daniel Brunskill, Jake Brendel.
Remind me after this so I can snap at the end real quick about something that I haven't been able to speak about. Yeah. I think you know where I'm going with it.
I'll remind you. I'll definitely remind you.
Okay.
Does it have something to do with Robbie Gould talking about Jalen Hurts? Because that was my issue.
Finish your list because I got some things to say.
So there's a lot of names on this 49er free agency list. I've seen 27. I have 23 personally. But obviously different people see different things. I last thing, and I'll let you go, Jason. $8.50 roughly in cap space right now. That changes obviously between March 10th. It's going to be a very interesting offseason for the 49ers, at least from the free agency standpoint.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of players that I think, I've been doing my free agent profiles, on the Niners Nation, and I make a prediction at the end, right off the top of my head, I think Aziz goes. He follows D'Amico. I think Jimmy Ward's gone. Jimmy Ward's market value is $7.7 million at free safety. That's what he wants to get paid. To kind of balance out the way that the 49ers do business, think about how good Tashawn Gibson was this year. And Tashawn Gibson and Jimmy Ward are the same age. They're both 31. So it's not like this is like overarching theme of like Tashawn Gibson's this old or like he's look it up.
No way.
I mean, if I'm wrong, like definitely let me know. But what the point I was trying to make is $7.7 million for Jimmy Ward, $1.1 million for Tashawn Gibson, and that production. It's hard, man. It's really hard to talk about how you're getting production and what you're paying. So I do think Mike McGlinchey does walk. Emmanuel Mosley is a little bit more of an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
His market value for a cornerback of his ilk, who has done what he's done in this league, is up in the $16 million range, which will put him at the 9th highest, according to Spotrac. I do think that there is going to be a little bit of a chance for him to do a 1-year prove it deal one more time, kind of bet on himself, and then hit free agency again. But you never know. There could be a team that likes what they see. They're just going to bank it, and they're going to throw the money at him. That's always a possibility. So it's going to be very interesting how they maneuver. The conversation is going to pivot to, do the 49ers just replace player for player in terms of position? Right? Like, do you replace a corner with a corner? Do you replace a safety with a safety? I have an interesting strategy when it comes to if this person leaves, what you do with said money, and $16 million can be made with just one Trent Williams restructure. $16 million. And I think that's something that you're going to see. You're going to see a bunch of restructures, things like that. So it's going to be very interesting. The 49ers are going to have to do some very much like Parag is going to have to cook this entire offseason if he wants to keep this roster where it's at.
And yeah, that's the thing, because we were in the group chat and Javi and I were talking a little bit about, the Niners have a need at center. They have a need at right tackle. They have a need on the entire defensive line. They have a need at safety. And as it stands right now, obviously, like, restructures will happen. But as it stands right now, the Niners really can only afford to address one of those positions in free agency and then figure out the rest. So whether it be, Mike McGlinchey, bringing back McGlinchey, how do you solve all those other positions with the money they have right now? And as I said, the Niners can free cap space easily, no problem. You mentioned Trent Williams restructure. I know I think Armstead was the other name that could get restructured. There's a few names that can get restructured to free up the cap space.
And you gotta sign that Nick Bosa guy.
And that Nick Bosa, a pretty important signing there as well. So there could be a lot of interesting turnover on the 49ers this offseason. And that's the kind of concerning thing because, you can nickel and dime these positions. And not saying it's a bad thing because they've made it work like defensive end. But at some point, like I guess the big conversation is get a guy who could stick next to Nick Bosa and kind of be that duo, things like that. So the Niners are going to have to address multiple positions with very limited cap space. So I'm interested to see how they go that way. I mean, I mentioned up top in your center article, you mentioned having Brendel walk and replacing him with Zackel. I have Brendel goes, replace him with Brunskill. So it's going to be a lot of those conversations of, okay, right tackle, if McGlinchey walks, how do you replace him? Well, it's probably going to be, and I'm totally drawing a blank on the name. I had it 3 seconds ago. He's on the team. McKivitz, there we call McKivitz. Things like that. That's what a lot of this conversation is going to be as of this second. So we'll see what that actually means. Jason, you want to do the draft now?
Yeah. Do you want to explain what it is to our listeners real quick?
Just some off-season content, have a little bit of fun. 5 rounds. Jason and I are going to pick the most, I guess, in the order of most important free agent the Niners should retain in terms of their importance. I'm going to give Jason the first pick because I have 2 names that I think could go number 1. I'm just going to let Jason take one of the 2. I'll take the other one. You see how I do that? So 5 rounds each. We'll just go back and forth, Jason, in terms of importance to bring them back. Jason Aponte, first overall pick. Who is the most important player the 49ers can bring back this offseason?
Manuel Mosley. I mean, and a lot of this is going to come down to what he's willing to get, what he's willing to take. And when you think about Steve Wilks coming over, right? Like, think about this. We were nervous about Amador Lenore for stretches of the season. But in the playoffs, he was nails. And did he figure something out? Now you're talking about being able to kick him inside and bringing back Mosley outside. I mean, if this team is going to have a drop-off in terms of pass rush outside of Nick Bosa, those things, you're going to need secondary. And you're going to need guys who can cover. Emmanuel Mosley stands to be the most interesting. Seems like the 49ers are going to make him a priority, but if the 49ers can get him back on a 1-year, prove it, $3.5, $4 million deal, something like that, and then try to see again, like when he goes to free agency, it just makes his defense so much stronger. So, with the incoming defensive coordinator, with how well Emmanuel Mosley has played, because I don't think people really understand how well he's played. I think you have an idea, but when you look at the numbers, when you look at the way that he's like eliminated guys, and remember in 2021 he was the guy, and he was the guy opposite Ambry Thomas and other guys like Josh Norman. Like he had to do everything. Now we're talking about making him a cornerback too, and being able to kick a guy who I felt kind of hit his stride in the playoffs and can be somebody who possibly now has built that confidence. It's Emmanuel Mosley, I think, with the first one.
Perfect. I had him 3 at my big board, so you did not help me. You did not eliminate one of the 2. I'm going to go I'm going to go McGlinchey with mine. Okay. There's been a lot of turnover on this 49ers offensive line the past few years, especially you think of the interior offensive line. The really only constant in the 5 years since McGlinchey has been here has been McGlinchey. I know Trent Williams came in 2020, but McGlinchey's been there, and I think people get confused with what a bad football player looks like a lot of people like to perceive McGlinchey being, and what a solid starter and a solid NFL starter looks like. And to me, it's not easy to find a solid NFL starter, and I think that's what Mike McGlinchey is. Yes, does he have those? I guess we're losing Garoppolo, so no throws aren't a thing. So I guess McGlinchey gets the no plays where we have those really bad reps where he's completely parallel to the ground, blocking Micah Parsons in the NFC divisional round, all that. I think it's one of those things where if you let him walk, and I know there's a lot of excitement with Colton McKivitz, I know the Niners like him, but it just feels like no matter how you replace him, it's going to be a step down. And that's a tough thing on an offensive line that's had a lot of overturn the past few years. So I'm going to go McGlinchey as my number 1 pick.
All right. Here's the thing is when you look at the numbers and how it's going to bear out, and you look at the free agents that are available, Mike McGlinchey is far and away the
Oh.
most attractive tackle out there.
Mhm.
When you look at the amount of teams that are running Shanahan's offense and how good he is in the run game, he starts to become an attractive figure for other people. Mike McGlinchey is very much a victim of his own draft capital. When you go back and you look at that draft and you see Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jair Alexander, and all of these names of guys that the 49ers could have drafted, it's been a thorn in the 49ers fans' side of being able to evaluate him. And yes, you guys blow up the one play that he messes up, or he loses a rep to a very good football player, but then you don't highlight the 49 other good reps in which he, doesn't give up anything. I think Mike McGlinchey is just going to get a bag at this point. And I think that it's not about, I don't want him back. It's about the 49ers plan of preparing to lose people. And they did it with Lincoln Tomlinson. Lincoln Tomlinson leaves. Well, you know what, Aaron Banks, you're up, and it's time for you to go. And look, it worked out very well. Lincoln Tomlinson struggled largely in the same system with the New York Jets. And then you think about center. This is where I'm at kind of with Jake Brendel, is it's a patchwork thing for a year because you got a guy behind you, right? And you get the production. I mean, Jake Brendel played 20 games and he gave up 13 pressures, and I think it was like 1 sack. I mean, for $1 million,
most snaps on the offensive line too.
That's bang for your buck. That is bang for your buck, right? Like, you have to think about in terms of not only production, but how much you paid that guy. This is why Daniel Brunskill can't leave. You have to bring Daniel Brunskill back because he can play all 5 positions at a moment's notice. Like, he's like the utility infielder for this offensive line. When it comes to McGlinchey, it's a combination, a perfect storm of him being the most attractive right tackle that's available, and he's probably going to fetch a bag. And I think the 49ers are kind of bracing for to lose him. And it's not that I don't want him here, but when you start thinking about the $16 million that the top right tackles get, and then you look around and there's not really anybody who can compare to him in terms of the market. Sure, Jawan Taylor's good. Sure, McGarry, like I don't want him either. But I do think the 49ers are trying to soften the blow, and they know that they have somebody in there. Now, having said that, I do think Colton McKivitz is a step down from Mike McGlinchey. Yes. But I do believe in the fact that, we did watch Tom Compton be serviceable. And I do think that Kyle Shanahan is going to put him in a spot where he can learn and grow and not put him on an island, things like that. But I just think Mike's going to get paid. I just don't think the 49ers are going to have the money to pay him, unfortunately. It's not that I don't want him back. That I do think that he's about to get paid. And when you look around, there's not really too many clear upgrades in free agency. So the 49ers are going to do it the way that they've always done with the offensive line, which is not allocate money to the offensive line and just try to replace him with a guy and just hope for the best. So, and I know that nobody wants to hear that.
And absolutely. I am at the point where I'm pretty confident Mike McGlinchey's gone. I think it's going to take a miracle. I think in terms of importance of bringing him back, it's up there. But the second the clock strikes midnight on the new league year, I mean, I'm sure it's happening already, but we're legally not allowed to talk to players. But the second the clock strikes midnight on a new year, the Jets and Dolphins will be calling. Right. And I think
Jets, Dolphins, Packers. I mean, almost anybody who's running Shanahan's offense, Vikings, any of these guys that are running Kubiak, Shanahan, any of those offenses, it's growing by the day. It's D'Amico, like it's growing by the day. You're getting offenses that are going to be running this. You have to remember McGlinchey was handpicked to run this offense and everything as well too. Jaguar, thank you for the donation. He says Amenahue, Gibson, Mosley, McGlinchey, Alshire, 1 through 5. Those are his picks as well.
That's not bad 5 picks, Jason. I will give you the 3rd pick now. McGlinchey and Mosley off the board. Who's number 2?
Number 2, in terms of returning, I do think it's Tashawn Gibson. When you think about 31, right? 31 years old. The production that you got, you have this massive reach of, and you're going to look it up again, right? Did you find it? Is he 31?
It's 32 and 30. Gibson's 32. Ward's 31. So a year, but still, that's way closer than I would have.
Right. Had. Because they make it seem like Gibson's just like, like old timer and he's on his way out. But, look, in terms of DB coach, somebody who can coach up DBs and somebody who Gibson's seen a little bit of success here. He hasn't really seen it too much in the league. I do think that when you look at how much you're paying him for the bang for your buck again, right? Like $1 million you're getting, you get 5 interceptions. You get 5 interceptions from Gibson, which is something the free safety has not done that they've been here. I love Jimmy Ward, but it just hasn't happened. I do think it's Gibson, and I do think that there is a way for them to draft someone who will take that spot eventually and learn from Gibson, and you don't have to put a bunch of money into it. I am big on secondary this year. I'm just big on secondary this year. I think that the 49ers should bring back their secondary guys, but they should make their splash with the money that they're not going to give McGlinchey and Jimmy Ward. They should give it to the defensive line, and they should give it to defensive tackle more specifically. Defensive tackle. Like,
are we getting
you
more
know the
specific
names.
with a name like Daron Payne?
Daron Payne. Like, it look, the Washington Commanders can absolutely franchise tag him. They can do that. Like, that's still on the table, right? Like, I think a lot of people are losing that. But a Hargrove or a Payne, like the 49ers at the end of the year, they rested on the laurels of Nick Bosa is going to just get it done. But you know what? That's why I'm good with Ebukam walking at this point. Ebukam was fine, but you know what? This is what you drafted Drake Jackson for. So if Drake Jackson, the guy that you think he is, so you've got to see that jump. It's whatever you're going to let walk from McGlinchey and all these guys, invest that back in the line. If you're going to take a step back on offense, if you're going to take a step back in production from offensive line, then invest in that defense because you're going to need to make it up somewhere. I am not a big proponent of you lost the right tackle, you got to sign a right tackle. I think that is where we are right now with the Javon Kinlaw thing, and I do think that that's a little bit of a bad way to think about it, unfortunately, and it just hasn't bared itself out. If you go best player available, if the 49ers traded DeForest Buckner, got their pick, didn't let the Tampa Bay Bucks get in front of them, Tristan Wirfs is there now. And now you're in a whole different spot. So for me, it's Gibson. I think you draft somebody, you allow them to grow into that role. I think Hufanga said, I mean, he's only 22. He's going to be there. Mooney set. Mosley will figure it out. But, you have a chance to keep a guy who has been great for a little money and can help someone else take the job eventually.
My second pick is going to be another. I don't think he's coming back, but I think the Niners should prioritize it, even though I don't think it's dead. I'm going to take the other safety, Jimmy Ward. Just put it back at safety. Run it back. Who cares? I think he's such an important piece of this defense.
I'd love
it's
that.
Not happening. It's not happening. I
love
promise it's not happening. It's just, to me, the veteran presence back there, especially with Talanoa Hufanga, being the young player he is. Bringing back Jimmy Ward, kind of the same reason for Tashawn Gibson, but I think Ward obviously is going to be a bit of a longer-term solution than Gibson. Jason, you mentioned the retirement plans. Jimmy Ward's going to the Texans. I'm going to throw that out there now. Too. He's going to the Texans, but if I had my choice, he would be either the first or second priority to retain with either McGlinchey or himself. I don't need to dive in too deep on Jimmy Ward because, as I said, I'm admitting he's gone. I'm fully admitting he's gone, but I do think the Niners need to prioritize him. We all know why we like Jimmy Ward here. Jason, your third pick.
Well, RA says, I like Andrew's hat.
It's a good hat. Thank you very much.
And Tavarius says, O-line should be the top priority, protect the quarterback. Yes, it certainly should be. I'm just going by what this team has done. They're gonna patch it up.
The only time this team has addressed the offensive line with big splash was Trent Williams, and that was only because.
But that's because you're getting the best.
Mm-hmm. And he was available for a third. Yeah,
right. And a third. I mean, for the
it just was a perfect storm for it to happen. Yeah. Right. That literally is what it took for Trent Williams to return, even down to Joe Staley retiring. Like, it took a perfect storm. Yeah. So I'm even writing how are the Niners going to address the right tackle position? And it's going to be such a boring one because it's literally going to be. Yeah, it's Mike McGlinchey or it's McKivitz, one of the two.
And good point, too. Peyton, too. Alex Mack, at center, right? Like, Alex Mack was a little bit more, but look what they got from Jake Brendel, man. Jake Brendel was fine for $1 million a year. You think you're getting that production of 20 games and 1 sack allowed from a guy who just makes $1 million? Like, again, look, what should the 49, what should they do? They should invest in protecting the quarterback. What they will do is they're going to draft a guy. They'll probably go with the guys that they've got in that locker room and go with another plan. And then they are going to invest, I think, with a big splash in the defensive line. Shout out to David Lombardi. I saw he was talking that big splash thing too, man. I like that. I like that a lot. So,
well, in my mind, in the NFL today, and I think it's been a thing for a while, is you build middle out. That's a good Silicon Valley reference. You build middle out.
This is good.
Yeah,
this is good. I mean, Axel's not wrong. And that's why shout out to John Chapman, man. I saw he put out a mock draft, and a lot of people were so angry because they didn't get the joke. The 49ers have 3 third-round picks. If you're going based on the history, they're all going to be running backs.
And like the thing is, though, is like I've kind of talked myself into like I think the Niners are drafting a running back. I've kind of talked myself into it just because that's what's happened so much. Maybe not a 3rd-round pick. I could see them taking a flyer with one of their 453 third-day draft choices they have this year. But I could fully see them taking a running back just to either A, because they think they need to, or B, just continue the meme. Kyle Shanahan feels like a guy who would continue a meme just to continue the meme for no other reason. So there's that.
And also to tell you that he doesn't give a fuck what you think. Like my plan is superior. I'm smarter. I'm better.
Yeah,
like
he's
I'm
never
just
cared.
do.
He has literally never cared.
So it's on me, right?
Yeah, it's on you. So Mosley, McGlinchey, Gibson, and Ward are off the board. You got 3 more choices, Jason.
Azeez Al-Shaair, but unfortunately, bye-bye Azeez. Look, the 49ers are not in base a lot, right? Again, that's why this whole discussion in this offseason about Vic Fangio and what he runs in base, you're not going to be in base. You'll be in base and 1 down per drive, basically. Everything's nickel, everything's spread out. You've got to – there's so many great athletes. You just can't be in base. It's just not possible, right? But I would be remiss if I didn't, talk about Azeez, man. Again, Azeez was injured. Dre Greenlaw ascended, perfect storm. But when Azeez was given his shot, man, he looked like the guy, man. So I'm not backing off that. I can't wait to see him ball out in Houston, but I'm going to go Azeez Al-Shaair. I do want to say that they do kind of have a guy that they can mold in that fashion in Marcelino McCrary Ball. But the problem is D'Amico's not here. And D'Amico is getting the most out of Azeez, right? Like, I think that is probably the correlation that you need. So if McCrary Ball doesn't come out and light the world on fire, don't get as upset. You have to kind of put it in your mind that D'Amico is there, and D'Amico's a linebacker guy, and he can get more out of linebackers. So that's the thing that's got me excited about the secondary. I'm just going to go with it at this point. Steve Wilkes, secondary. D'Amico Ryans, linebacker. Shout out to Azeez Al-Shaair. Can't wait for you to get your spot. I'm going to be rooting for you, my boy.
My 3rd pick, I'm going to go Brendel. I've already conceded that McGlinchey is leaving. I have a hard time believing that this team. I don't like the feel of having to replace 2 offensive line spots, 2 starting offensive line spots, and I know Brunskill could be a one to slide in. But you mentioned all the stats. What was it? 13 pressures in 20 games. He played the most snaps on the offense. He was healthy, and that's some issues the Niners have had at every position. I think the continuity on the offensive line is going to be huge, especially considering I meant to write it down. In the 6 week ones the Niners have had under Kyle Shanahan, 5 different week 1 starting centers. It's been a position they struggled with continuity. I believe Weston Richburg was the only one to have 2 opening week starts at center for the 49ers. At some point, they need to solidify it. I think you can bring back Brendel on a couple-year deal for not super expensive before he gets to the open market. But kind of with McGlinchey, kind of with all the free agents, the second you hit the open market, your price jumps. So if the Niners are going to want to get a team-friendly deal for any of these guys, they're going to have to do it within the next month. Brendel, for me, if you lose McGlinchey, I think Brendel is just that much more important to bring back because I know they did it last year with the entire interior of the offensive line, replacing all 3 starters from the previous year. I just don't. And exactly where we were last year, replacing 2 Pro Bowlers on the O-line. Yes, the offensive line was solid this year. At some point, though, like replacing spots isn't going to be conducive to having a good offensive line. So if you're losing McGlinchey, I think Brendel's just that much more important to bring back.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, it's everybody has this like way that they evaluate players, and they're just like, oh, well, oh my God, he's not good. But when you think about what you're paying, what are you paying this guy? Where did you find him? Jake Brendel had 3 career starts before he made 20 this season. And look at what they got, right? This is why we kind of have to trust the process in terms of how this goes. And that's why when people are like, invest in O-line, I'm like, well, it's not the 49er way. Like, not under Kyle Shanahan. I mean, you draft guys, and then you have guys that are stopgaps. And then when it's their time, you let Tomlinson walk, get the bag. Aaron Banks step in. He played fine. Brendel steps in. He was good. You have Brunskill there just in case, God forbid, anything happens to any of these guys. He's invaluable. I think Brunskill is the guy that's invaluable because if you do take a chance on a guy at right tackle or center, right, that you're replacing, you've always got Brunskill in the background who can get in there and be solid for you. So this is why Brunskill can't leave. He can't leave. So if the 49ers have plans for these guys, you still got somebody who's like an ace in the hole, like up your sleeve. I don't think that there's many teams that have a guy that can play all 5 offensive line positions at the Aaron Banks gets injured in Vegas. Good in there, Brunskill. Go get him. You hope that you're getting a jump from Burford. You don't have to swap him and Brunskill out anymore. So I do understand that sentiment. I do. Yeah. I understand that the 49ers will know the limitations of this offensive line and try to call plays that way. But again, right now, 49er fans are frustrated because quarterbacks have been injured, and there's offensive line is you literally just watched the Philadelphia Eagles dominate on their way to, making the Super Bowl. And then the Kansas City Chiefs dominated their defensive line, regardless of whatever you think it is. It's 0 sacks. You give Patrick Mahomes that much time, it's not going to be a good thing. So I do understand that frustration. And look, I get it, Andrew. I like the idea of keeping Brendel because Brendel's raise from $1 million something isn't going to go from $1 million to 10.
No, this isn't a McGlinchey jump.
Right.
This isn't a McGlinchey jump.
Right. So it'll be $1 million to 3 or something like that, right? Like, again, it's just how you balance all that out. So I do love the idea of continuity also, Andrew. I'm just going based off the way that this team has built their team. You draft guys that sit for a year, Burford, Banks, and when those guys price themselves out and they've got to move, now you bring those guys in and you let them play. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going based off that.
That makes sense. Is Brunskill your 4th pick? Because you went very in-depth on Brunskill there.
Brunskill is my 4th pick.
Okay.
Look, again, I mean, I don't have to reiterate it, and I am going to anyway. I don't have to, but I will. Again, man, who has this sort of luxury? Your center goes down. You know what? Throw Brunskill in there. You got a shot. Your left guard goes down in Vegas. Cool. 55 snaps. I got you. And I got you the next week, too, in Arizona. Oh, your right guard who is starting his first few games, if he's struggling in and out, there's no rhyme or reason for Kyle Shanahan to have some sort of rotation at right guard, but it works. Because Daniel Brunskill, I don't know. I mean, that's why he's smarter than I am. That's why he's better looking than I am. That's why he does this, right? Like, he understands that. And I think, again, when you're talking about value, you're talking about $2.5 million, I think is what Brunskill made this past year. When you're talking about Brunskill, you're talking about something that is like, again, I don't want to talk about baseball too much, which this is going to turn into a baseball pod very soon. Spoiler alert, guys. But a utility infielder, third base, shortstop, second base, can play anywhere, right? Like a guy goes down, like that's something that's invaluable, right? So again, Brunskill's not going to have too hot of a market, not a sexy player, hasn't done anything, put anything on film that people are like jumping at, but you are going to have to give him a raise because of how invaluable he is. So yeah, Daniel Brunskill for me.
If it makes you feel better, Brunskill was going to be my next pick. Because if you don't bring back Brendel, even if you start Zackel at center, utility man, offensive lineman, I think all 32 teams could use one of those guys. So I want to shout you out on that. I'm going to go Menahue with my next pick because we talked about how they need to address the offense or the defensive line as well. Menahue feels like the best name they're losing, and if you can bring him back, I think that's just a good piece to have overall. He was never really the second edge rusher. That was Ebukam's position, but it felt like Menahue had just as big of an impact out of that third spot. So I'll say Menahue. Obviously, that changes a little bit with certain pending legal proceedings. We'll see what happens there. But if we're not rebuilding this defensive line, if we're retooling this defensive line, I think Menahue is the best name to be able to bring back and kind of continue building it. Especially if you could keep him as the third and find somebody to step in for Ebukam, I think Menahue is a perfect rotational edge rusher for this 49ers defense.
Unfortunately, his situation at the end of the year is going to put people off, no matter what the facts
are.
Absolutely,
I don't blame him.
Yeah. But yeah, Menahue was somebody who before that was literally screaming, "You need to sign me," and I'm not going to sign for cheap. So I'm with you. Again, the 49ers need to find a way to generate more pressure from the defensive tackle position. Omenihu is very flexible. He can do all of those things. Again, bet on those traits. Chris Kosuric stayed, which is probably – we talked about coaches the entire time, and Chris Kosuric stayed, and we didn't even highlight that one time. And that's the thing that we really should be excited about, I think, as 49ers fans. But, yeah, I'm with you on Omenihu. And my last pick is going to be Samson Ebukam. But Samson Ebukam is priced himself out now at this point. It's an insane stat, but because I wrote the free agent profile on him, I had to look it up. Back-to-back years, Samson Ebukam has played 681 snaps each year.
Exactly.
I don't even know how that's possible. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know what's the chances of that per PFF. 681 snaps, and he's only gotten better and better. Again, the 49ers saw something in him. He's been very good in run defense. He actually is second in the team in pressures. That's something that I bet that nobody could really think of or could have thought was happening. But I do think, again, when we're talking about the way the 49ers are kind of building, you heard Kyle Shanahan at the end of the year say that Drake Jackson kind of fell. He lost some juice. He didn't finish the year right. I think they're betting on that jump. But I'll be honest with you. I've got a free agent name in mind for a defensive end that I want the 49ers to go after. Somebody who's very good in run defense, somebody who's good at generating generating pressures, and he's from the NFC West. His name is Zach Allen, and I would love to see that happen. Unfortunately, again, it's going to come down to he's a young guy. He's proven himself in the league. How much can you pay? It's going to be an upgrade over Ebukam, I think, in talent. But it's also going to be an upgrade in terms of pay. So I'd love Zach Allen, man. I really would. And you get Zach Allen in there, he can be that sort of – he's more established than Jordan Willis or Menahu right before Chris Kosuric got his hands on him. But if you let Zach Allen get into the Chris Kosuric coaching regimen, whatever it is, I think you start to see a guy who can consistently on the other side help Nick Bosa while being that guy who can stop the run and stuff the run because he did it so well in Arizona. So, yeah, I mean, they've got to figure out a consistent edge on the other side of Nick Bosa. They just do. I mean, Nick Bosa at the end of the year, he just looked like a guy who gave everything all year. He just gave it all, and he didn't have any more to give at the end of the year. When people were like, oh, what's the impact? I'm like, dude, think about the NFC Championship game. The guy got cleated on a sideline. He was bleeding from his leg. I was just like, dude, like the guy can't give anymore. You need more help on the defensive line. You just do.
Arden Key's an interesting name that's out there. Just throwing that
again. Him?
Welcome
back, buddy. I mean, Kerry Hyder left and came back. Come on back.
Yeah. My last pick, and dare I say the Mr. Irrelevant of this draft. It's kind of half meme, but like also we've been talking about how how the Niners just always do things. We talked about some question marks at the quarterback position earlier today.
Oh, here we go.
And a name that that name that we've been trying to trade for the last 3 off seasons, and he's just always come back. I half meme, half not meme. Jimmy Garoppolo. What if we live in a world where Aaron Rodgers is available? Derek Carr, there's a lot of good quarterback names, and all the spots kind of fill up, right? And this is my third pick on a guy who's not coming back, so really good draft by me, right? But Jimmy Garoppolo is inevitable, as Thanos would say. I believe that's what he said. He snaps his finger, and then Jimmy Garoppolo is just in a Niners uniform. I think that's the whole point of the movie. I haven't seen it yet, though. But hey, man, there's questions of the quarterback position, and knock on wood. If the Brock Purdy news doesn't come back right, the Niners might need a quarterback. Might need a backup quarterback. I'm just throwing it out there. Listen, you guys are memeing me. I get it. But how many times have we said the sentence, Jimmy Garoppolo's never coming back? And guess what? Yes, Rob, I agree. There's no way Kyle lets that happen. But I said that last offseason too, damn it. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Garoppolo, run it back. Year 8. Let's do it. Year 7?
I love you, Andrew. I love you so much.
Was that whole draft thing just a bit to get me to take Jimmy Garoppolo with the last pick? I don't know. We'll find out.
We will find out. All right. So look, let's first of all, First of all, let me
send
let
the
me at
people home
least-
happy. No, this is a Sprint Ride Option podcast. We send the people home with Jimmy Garoppolo. Damn.
Let me let me at least say this about what I've learned. You know, this is what our third year, right? Covering the team.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me say this. I have learned very few things, but this is the one thing that I've learned. Never rule anything out. at this point,
Never.
right? Never. Okay. But here's why it won't happen, Andrew.
No, it won't happen. You can tell me. I agree.
Yeah, here's why it won't happen. Look, I've been very vocal about saying that I believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback in this league. And people don't like hearing that because when I say that he's a starting quarterback, they say, well, where do you rank him? And I say he is in that tier of guys because there are only 7 to 8 elite guys, and the rest of them are guys. They're just like week to week, they're all guys, right? 1 week it's Carr, 1 week it's Cousins, 1 week it's Garoppolo, 1 week it's Tannehill. They're all guys. After that, after you have, that's why everybody's like, oh, I want an elite guy. Cool. They're not growing on trees. That's why only 7, 8 teams have them. But let's think about the going rate for a quarterback. Yeah. A starting quarterback.
Yeah.
It's 30 M's, Andrew.
Yeah, no, that's
30
Jimmy
M's.
Garoppolo. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 30 M's. I don't care what you believe about Jimmy Garoppolo, what you think he can do for your team. He's a starting quarterback in this league who has won games and has a track record. He is going to make 30 M's. 30 M's. Unless Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't like money or hates himself and wants to go back to Kyle Shanahan hating him and bringing himself back. I don't see this happening.
No.
Again, my predictions are Josh McDaniels brings in Jimmy Garoppolo to run the offense he thought he was going to run after Tom Brady left. I think that's pretty right there. I think Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the New York Jets. I think Derek Carr signs with the New Orleans Saints. They find a way, even though they're like $800 million over the cap. But I just think that, again, it's the going rate for quarterbacks, right? Like the 49ers have this going for them going forward with Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Their combined quarterback room for how much they make is less than what backups make.
Yep.
And that's insane when you think about that, because that's just going rate, right?
Yeah.
Think about this. The New York Giants, right? They're in an interesting spot right now, right? You've got to find a way to bring back Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And Jimmy to Miami makes sense too as well. But I mean, that just implies that Tua's cooked. Like, and what do you do now at this point? Like with him, like you know, I don't know. So, but you know, it was interesting that George Kittle, when he was asked that media role,
very quickly
flinch. He did not even flinch and was just like Miami. So I do put a lot of stock into that. That's a very good call. But when you look at, damn it, what the hell was I saying before
Daniel Jones and Saquon Giants?
Daniel Jones and Saquon. Daniel Jones and Saquon. So Daniel Jones, if he gets franchise tagged for one more year, is going to make 32 M's. And that would mean you're going to franchise tag Daniel Jones because a report came out today that he wants 45 M's, which I couldn't see myself clear of doing that.
But it's such a tricky situation, though, because kind of like the same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is like in especially in 2023, like if you think you have a guy, like you kind of got to overpay him. Right. And that's my stand. I don't think I give Daniel Jones that much, but yeah, you know what I mean.
If they do, right? So here's an interesting conundrum. I think the optimal thing is to sign Daniel Jones to a 2-year, 3-year deal where you pay him a little bit more, right? Like, and you pay him and you pay him up front and you tag Saquon Barkley 1 more year, use him, and then and after the year you let Saquon walk and you draft another running back.
Yeah.
But if you tag Daniel Jones and you lose Saquon Barkley, what do you do now with your first-round pick? Do you jump in front of the Dallas Cowboys and draft a running back in the first round, Bijan Robinson?
Yep.
I mean, this is the thing. It's like when you think about Daniel Jones after one season of looking competent and he was good this year, man. He was asking for, hey, the whole league was writing me off. This whole fan base hated me, but I want 45 M's now. That should let you know where the quarterback position is right now in terms of like how much these guys make. So, you know what, man? I'll say this, Andrew. I'll say this. I would love Jimmy Garoppolo to come back just for the chaos.
Oh,
You know what? At this
that's
point,
kind of where this is coming from. Yeah, it's the chaos side of things.
look, Andrew and I cover the team
Yeah.
in various ways. I'm a fan, yeah. But at the end of the day, I still have to cover the team, right? No matter how mad I am after a loss, no matter how disappointed, how disheartening, I still have to get in front of this camera. I still have to write my articles. I still
Yeah.
got to do my job.
Mhm.
Elite content would be Jimmy Garoppolo coming back
Yeah.
for a 1-year, $8 million fully
Like, yeah.
guaranteed contract. Yeah, and just throwing a complete, like, taking a grenade and just throwing it right into like everybody's plans. And I'd be here for it because I love how invested people are with him not being here. And I realized this. I am not in control of anything that the 49ers do.
No.
So I
That's the
don't
scariest
care
thing.
anymore. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. When you realize that you're out of control, you're not in control, that you're out of control, that chaos is inevitable, you sleep peacefully at night. You don't lie up at night watching Emmanuel Sanders have a ball thrown over his head by like 10 yards. Like
Yeah.
you just
That never happened.
you just let it happen. And I have to recount the events. I'm done prognosticating. I know that sounds boring. I know people want to like jump out with their opinions, and you find that more cool. I'll stick to my analyst bag, and I'm just gonna assess what happens. I'm sorry, I can't change that up right now at this point.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, incorrectly surprised by the number Jimmy Garoppolo gets because the going rate for a starting NFL quarterback is not cheap to say the least. So,
No.
so the Jimmy Garoppolo's gone. I having fun here on this Right Option podcast. Jason,
Raiders, baby.
Raiders.
I can't wait till Devontae Adams is like wide open and he throws that shit into like the sideline and he just looks around like this guy's somehow worse than Carr.
Dude, are Raider fans going to have the conversation of like Darren Waller's usage is incorrect? Like the way they're using Darren Waller is wrong, even though George Kittle seemed to get a little
leaving Waller in to block leaving Waller and Foster Moreau to block a defensive end. Is that what we're doing?
Dude. Oh my God, dude! The taking selfies in their car with the sunglasses. They're gonna love the Jimmy Garoppolo to Hunter Renfrow duo. Oh my God, that's gonna be all time in Vegas. Honestly, I would fly to a Vegas
those guys.
game.
They're gonna overdraft Hunter Renfrow, thinking that he's just gonna get peppered with targets. Like they're just gonna be like, that's my wide receiver too, man.
Jake, we somehow got an hour and 15 out of
I can't believe it, Andrew. And I think it's because I miss you and I haven't seen you in so long.
Hey man, I'm looking forward to this offseason. It's going to be a very fun one. We'll get a little more consistent as we get closer to the new league year. It's just kind of here and there. Not much.
We'll do one next week from the combine.
Exactly. Not much has happened in the past few weeks. We took the weeks off because it's nice to not think about football.
I really needed to just step away. That's why I don't tweet anymore. I just been like chilling. Last of Us has captivated me. It's incredible. It's one of the best shows I've seen in such a long time. Also been watching Shrinking on Apple TV. I think that's a really funny show as well too. Spending more time with Averly, even though I threw my back out jumping around with her. But yeah, I know that everybody talks like the no sleep, the grind don't stop. But you know what? I needed to decompress.
Yeah, sleep.
Because
sleep sometimes it's good.
Yeah, I just needed to step away for a little bit. And I'm glad you guys stuck around, man. I mean, even having 70 people in here right now in the offseason is it feels like a milestone just because, you guys are the hardcore guys. You guys are the ones who are watching draft prospects and thinking about free agency and thinking about what this team is going to be like. Casual gets thrown around a lot, but casual fans right now on February 20th, they don't care about this at any point. They'll pick it up when training camp starts. But shout out to you guys, man. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us.
Yeah, man, I've been watching a lot of Prem League lately. I got so emotionally invested in a wrestling match on Saturday. It was real bad. We were having a good time here on the Sprint Right Option podcast. Jason, we're very close to baseball season. We're very excited about that. I didn't want to throw it out there.
I'm on Ohtani watch.
We're on Ohtani watch for the next year. So you remember the Aaron Judge conversations I had? Just replace Ohtani with him. You mentioned
YG. I'm gonna if Kyle goes to the combine, I'm definitely gonna ask a question in Kyle voice to him, and I'm gonna get like thrown out of the combine. Like I promise you. Like don't let Kyle go and speak because I'm gonna be like, well, I got a question about the right tackle position, and he's gonna be like, oh, you think you're funny? Get his ass out of here.
Matt, real quick, just to pivot to the baseball thing, real quick. You mentioned the Samson Ebukam 681 snap counts for back-to-back seasons. You remember Chris Davis, the A's player, 2015 to 2018, he hit 247 4 consecutive years. So.
Dude, for Cleveland, right? Sui did it. That's insane.
It was Milwaukee and Oakland. 4 consecutive
Milwaukee and Oakland.
years.
So he didn't do it. Oh, so he didn't do it in Cleveland. He was the one who hit the home run off of Aroldis Chapman in the World Series, right? No. Oh, no, not Chris Davis. It's that guy. The guy who hit the home run off of Aroldis Chapman. Give me a second. Go. Keep talking.
Jose Altuve?
No, man.
Not that Chapman home run?
No, the World Series. Chapman's never been in the World Series outside of the Cubs one.
No, that's Giants legend Raj Davis.
Raji Davis hit like 247 like almost every single year, I think, too.
Raj Davis was a giant, dude. He was a good giant. He was a decent giant.
Like Ruben Rivera?
He had a long career. Raj Davis. Oh man, just talking random baseball now. Is this the time we cut the podcast? We're talking Raj Davis here on the Sprint Right Option Podcast. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners, and thank you guys, man. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the time.
We appreciate
don't
appreciate each and every one of you.
Don't stress about this.
Welcome everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.